Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
Welcome, everyone, to the May evening meeting of the Board of Supervisors, Warren County Board of Supervisors. Please rise while Supervisor Hogan leads us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Warren County.
The clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Ms. Bramer?
Here.
Mr. Loeb?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier?
Here.
Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Ms. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson? Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Wild?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Sokol? Mr. Thomas? Ms. Hyde? Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Chairman Conover?
Here. You should all have received the minutes of our board meeting of April 20. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the minutes. Mr. Simpson on the motion to approve. Ms. Hogan on the second. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And now we will have a presentation of certificates of excellence to SUNY Adirondack graduates Serena Rozbaki and Jessica Young. And I would ask, I would like to now turn the meeting over to Supervisor McDevitt.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the great honor of speaking at the Civic Center Friday evening to the graduates, and it was a great experience. I am go back to my college days. If I was a very consistent C, okay, C, maybe C plus, okay. And Doug was right in that same category. And George Bush used to go around the country, and he used to give commencement addresses. And Bush was a guy that was a very likable man. Was not considered to be a great student, but I think a reasonably good president. And he used to go around and he'd say, to those of you who received honors, awards, and distinctions, I say well done. And to the C students, I say to you, you too, one day can be president of the United States. So I am honored to, again, to talk about Serena, who is with us this evening. Also in attendance is John Lebowski, who is Vice President of Academic Affairs at the college. Welcome, John. The session, the graduation last Friday evening, I think is summarized by President Duffy. And basically, the theme, I think, of the graduation was overcoming obstacles. And to paraphrase President Duffy, she said, "You each have a unique story to tell, stories of triumph, resiliency, challenges, and success. But we all share the common bond of SUNY Adirondack. And this, my friends, is a bond that is never broken. What got you here tonight was grit, determination, resilience, and will." Tonight we're honored to award Serena Rusbacki an award for being a part of those characteristics. And let me just read a little bit about Serena and what she encountered and her ability to overcome challenges. Serena grew up between Essex and northern Warren counties, graduated from high school, and moved to Warrensburg, where she currently resides. Serena struggled with undiagnosed mental health issues throughout high school. She is an extremely creative person, but was challenged with long, depressive episodes, which interfered with her social and her academic life. She actually registered at SUNY Adirondack as an early admission student in the spring of 2013, hoping to get a start on college and find an avenue in which to express her talents. Serena was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after a serious suicide attempt. Her diagnosis was the start of a journey to health, which utilized medication, therapy, and support from friends and family. Although it has taken her longer than she expected, Serena persevered. And Serena has completed her liberal arts degree at SUNY Adirondack with a 3.02 grade point average. She has been accepted into the linguistics program at SUNY Albany and will begin her study there in the fall. It is important to Serena that our community works to destigmatize mental illness and begin to treat all community members with equal respect and provide equal opportunity for all. Recently, Serena participated in the creation of a video with the Council for Prevention to educate the public on mental health. Serena, congratulations, and we are very proud of you tonight.
Peter, hold that pose. We have a photograph.
Yeah, hold still.
Right over here, Peter. Actually, we need one more photograph. Did you get your photograph?
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay.
Get you through another. Serena, one of
In my book.
Yeah.
Our second recipient is Jessica Young. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you for attending. Let me attempt to give you some great bullets as it relates to Jessica in terms of what she has overcome and her challenges in her effort to get her degree. Jessica began attending SUNY Adirondack in 2004 when she first got out of high school. At that time, she readily admits that her interests did not lie in college success. She spent much of her time enjoying her new freedoms and partying with friends. Jessica switched her major several times, leaving a trail of bad grades, which eventually led to her dropping out. She became a mother a short time after, and a single mother not too much longer after that. Throughout the years, she struggled with jobs so that she could support her son. At a certain point, she was working 2 jobs. The reality began to sink in that for Jessica and her son, the threat of homelessness was always just one missed paycheck away. It was during this time that she realized that without a degree, her options were very limited. She applied and was accepted to SUNY Adirondack a second time. She went through all the steps, but found out on the first day of school that due to her past indiscretions, she could not receive any financial aid. Jessica reports, "I knew I could not pay out of pocket. I started crying right on the couch in the office. Then a very nice woman walked in, heard the story, and said, 'Let's go and see what we can do.' After Jessica was coached and guided through the proper departments, she was able to begin again with access to financial aid. Now, 15 years later, Jessica proudly reports that she has turned my 1.75 GPA to a 3.2 GPA overall. And she's been on the dean's list every semester since I came back in 2016. Jessica has recently been accepted to SUNY Plattsburgh and will start her BA in the criminal justice program in the fall. Jessica, thank you so much.
Peter over here afterwards.
Steve over here.
Peter, Jessica.
Ready. Thank you.
Great.
Good job.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Congratulations to both you guys. We appreciate your attendance this evening, and we wish you the very, very best. And we know you're going to just do great. Thank you.
Great job, Peter. And now I'd like to invite Jim Liebram, District Manager, Warren County Soil and Water, to the podium to address the board.
All right, good evening. This is the meeting that your Warren County Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Program public comment period would be ending. The public comment period was opened on April 23rd at the DPW meeting and the Soil and Water Conservation District meetings. The hard copies were available for public review and comment at the clerk's office here, at the Department of Public Works, and at the Soil and Water Office, available electronically at our website and at the county website. As of now, there's been no comments received. If you're not familiar with the program, some of you may not be familiar with it because it doesn't affect you directly as a town, but if you're in the city of Glens Falls, you have your own program. The county, it's only in what's determined by the Census Bureau to be the urbanized area, which is portions of Queensbury, town of Lake George, Village Lake George, and in the city. The program is guided by the Stormwater Management Plan, which is also available at both websites. Pardon me. And this refers only to facilities and infrastructure owned by the county within those urbanized areas. And so the goal of the program, which is EPA mandated starting in 1986 and then slowly rolling out over the United States, is administered in New York State by the DEC. And if you're in an urbanized area, then you are actually have the management requirements. It's to reduce stormwater impacts, to reduce non-point source pollution, and to improve and protect natural resources. So there's a lot of projects that go on. Mr. Hajos's department does a lot of routine maintenance projects and road projects, but those count. It's just keeping track of everything. Again, we have received no comments, and I will say that this year there will be changes to the stormwater management plan because there will be changes to the DEC permit, so there'll be requirement changes. I've already spoken to Kevin about this. So if anybody has any questions about the program, please let me know. I'm your stormwater management officer. Other than that, that's all I have tonight, man.
Fine. Any questions for Jim? Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, I'm wondering, the plan, of course, I'm sure is well worked out, but is it cause for concern that no comments were received?
Since our office has been doing it, I don't honestly know if there's ever been any comments from this. So, yeah, for me personally, yes, because of what we do and what we work on, we see a lot of issues, and we get people calling our office. There's this, the water's brown, there's this, those are the types of things where, the public could take a look at the report and say, well, how come this wasn't done? Well, valid questions. Well, financial constraints, priorities, things of that nature. But I often think that maybe people aren't aware of it, even though with the availability of it, it's a very specific program and report. So it might not have a broad interest to many people, and just the time to understand all the aspects of it, that might be a bit overwhelming too. But I know that in my office there's several of us that deal with this. Myself and Nick Rowell, who's our natural resources specialist, and we'd be happy to discuss this with anybody and the program. So I think it's important to know because we work with every community on stormwater, and it doesn't matter if it's in the town of Johnsburg or if it's in the town of Thurman or it's in Queensbury. We have to protect our water quality. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Yep. So we'll just need to close the public comment period, and I'll get your signature on the form tomorrow.
Okay. Would you like this body to close it?
You generally do that.
Okay. Then Chair will entertain a motion to close. Mr. Simpson, Ms. Bramer on the second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor of closing the public comment period signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And you need to approve the report.
And now I need a motion to approve the report. Mr. Merlino, Mr. Stroud on the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Jim. It was an extremely busy month. The committee meetings on the 23rd and 24th. On the 26th, I attended Intercounty along with a number of you at Commonwealth Plywood in Whitehall. Very interesting tour. During the luncheon, I made sure that those present were aware of the issues surrounding the Lake George Regional, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board. On April 27th, I had a phone conference with the 5 chairs regarding issues surrounding the Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board. You should all have received copies, detailed report on that phone conference. I'd like to thank our county administrator for getting that out in such a timely fashion. We're presently waiting for some of the counties to finish with their certifying their appointments, and when that happens, we will begin the process of going through that with with a lot of detail. At the same time, as far as this chair is concerned, my feeling is and has been all along that bringing Mr. Young in or anyone else from the Regional Planning Board into our committee structure to discuss any and all items is should happen until such time as everyone's completely satisfied, and at that point in time they should come in on a regular basis, including presentation of their financials when their annual financials are completed, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the end game. It may take us a while to get there, but I think I think all in all, I think it's been healthy, and hopefully it'll all end in a good place. On April 30th, attended a committee meeting in the afternoon. I attended the EMS committee meeting, Emergency Management Committee special committee meeting. There was a presentation on the Essex County, on what Essex County had planned for their EMS. I found it very interesting. It was a very active discussion. I'm sure Mr. Leggett will have more to say regarding that. And then on May 3rd, I attended some committee meetings, but also in particular, I attended the budget meeting and brought forward at the budget meeting. Commonly what happens in January is we have, 12 or 15 resolutions that are kind of, have been standard kind of resolutions that are presented to the board during the organizational meeting. This year, what we did was we took those resolutions to finance. We had a finance committee meeting handy before the full board meeting, so we went to finance with those resolutions. I'm going to count them as, say, a dozen. It might be a little more. What I'd like to do going forward is during the budget committee's deliberation process, those resolutions that commonly appear before us in January should be entertained at the budget meeting on their individual merits. Just like any other resolution that comes before us, so that it's publicized, people know about it, and anybody who wishes to speak, civilian or supervisor, is free to be able to comment on any of those contracts. So when they finally come in front of us in January, they've come through our committee structure, and I think it's a good formal way to handle that going forward. And I think it's particularly important at times where we have new supervisors coming in that may be totally unfamiliar with a lot of those grants and a lot of those contracts that we have. And Supervisor Thomas and I think the committee embraced that idea, and I think that makes for a very good way to proceed going forward relative to those resolutions. And that concludes my report. Reports by committee chairman on the past month. We'll start with Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no report.
No report. Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tourism met on April 30th. We got a lot of statistics that came in from our advertising. And it's all publicized. If anybody wants it, we can go down and see Kate, and she can, not Kate, Joanne, and she can give you all the information instead of me sitting here reading it all. But another big thing, we just got number 4 in the top 10 destination for summer travel, and that destination is with the increase of seasonal bookings from spring to summer, and that's in the April magazine of Money Magazine. So we're looking forward to a positive summer, and all this information is posted on our social media. Our new employee started yesterday, Paul Keckett. He's going to be the assistant coordinator, and I hope we'll have success with that gentleman. Joanne is going down Thursday to New York to attend the conference on rail by rail, and that's the Albany to Saratoga information that comes out every year. Tanya will be attending a travel industry premier show marketing place with I Love New York and a contingency of 10 New York State tourism promotional agencies. And just a quick comment while I got the floor. I think we all know what happened to us last weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before. And I, as a small town supervisor, I think our emergency coordinator, Brian LaFleur and Amy Drexel, has to be commended with the work that they did that weekend with that storm. Like, I know in my town, we were out of power from 7 o'clock Friday night till about 4 o'clock Sunday morning, and the rest of the town got it at midnight Monday. Also, we all beat up on National Grid and people that we think they're not doing a good job. National Grid did a hell of a job that weekend with getting in crews from all over the state and keeping all us supervisors well informed with robocalls. We were able to get on the phone with them at 4 every afternoon to give us a report on our towns, and so that when people call us and say, or come and see us, most of them couldn't call, when am I getting my power back? We had answers. And most of the towns, I guess, like in my down, we have our own water wells, and we had a generator, and it performed really well. It's the first time it ran so long, and as long as I can remember. But we learned one thing, that you still need the phone line to send the signal from the tower that gets full of water to stop the pumps from running. So after we found something out that was happening, my gentleman, he had to go every 4 hours from home to the water to shut the pumps off automatically for a while and then go back and turn them back on. But we kept the water running and everything went well. So I think that's something, but I think our emergency management team did a heck of a job.
Thank you, Gene. Supervisor Stroud.
No committee report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Wild.
No report, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Supervisor Beatty.
Yes, I have a report. I met with Julie Butler, Director of our Purchasing, and Claudia Bramer, and we worked, I think we had 2 meetings last month, working on the RFP for the animal control to be submitted to the support services, Craig Leggett's team. And I know they hammered out some things yesterday afternoon in a meeting, in a workshop, so I'm sure he can update us or whatever on that status. On a side note, Mr. Chairman, I wish I was as positive as you are, positive vibes with this Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board. I spent 7 hours going through a couple of loans that was supplied to me, and I thank our county administrator for allowing me his office to go through those loans. And I found them very, very disturbing. I found that their own loan committee does not follow their own loan requirements in giving out loans. And that's disturbing to me. That is public money. That's everybody in this room's money. And when we don't even follow our own checks and balances and our own guidelines, and I find it very, very disturbing. It's one thing if a private company doesn't want to follow it, but it's another thing when it comes to public money and public resources. I know that Chairman McDivitt has opened up the next EDC meeting, I believe at the end of the month, or special one, for their loan committee to attend. I hope they watch and read the minutes and look TV, and I hope they attend, because if they do not attend, that should be very, very disturbing to every single person in this room. If they don't come and be held accountable for the decisions they're making, and we are the oversight, one of 5 oversight counties, what does that say about us? What does that say about the process? And what the heck does that say about public money that's being thrown around with no checks and balances? So I wish I could be as positive as you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not. I've had it with Mr. Young, and I'll say that publicly. I actually requested that that the 5 counties look into having him resign about 4 weeks ago. He's been less than helpful. In fact, he goes out of his way to be hindering any process, any progress. And yet we sit around and we say, oh, it will get better. Well, it's not getting better. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. So if that loan committee doesn't show up at the end of the month, I'm going to probably insist that we have a special emergency meeting of the Lake George, Lake Champlain Board and the 5 chairmen of the counties and demand the resignation of Mr. Young. And I'll probably demand some other things too concerning the loan committee if they don't have the respect to show up and answer questions from this board. So that's where I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor McGowan.
No committee report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Garrity.
Personnel met on May 3rd. We have 3 resolutions in your packet, 220, 221, 222. We also completed all the department head evaluations except for one this past month, and they all went pretty well. And then we have no appointments of new employees because they're all in place. So that's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Criminal Justice Public Safety met, and before you are 5 resolutions from that meeting. Resolutions 2003 through 2007. 2 are basically for software system maintenance agreements. One of them a joint agreement with Glens Falls. One is an appointment to the Fire Advisory Board, one authorizes out-of-state travel, and one's for repair to the Prospect Mountain radio equipment that was damaged during a storm. It's to be paid out of the Sheriff's 911 Center Repair Maintenance Budget Code, and the revenue is coming from insurance recovery on that one. Aside from the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, the EMS Task Force did meet. We had a presentation by Patty Basham from Essex County, who are developing a county-wide EMS system. We also had a presentation by Mickey Guy, the Warren County EMS coordinator, on some of the background of our system and what can be done. Direction was given to proceed with further development of a flexible county-based EMS service plan. We'd also like to commend the Warren County Office of Emergency Services for their work that was done during the power outages of the storm from last week. The town of Chester was hit quite hard. It was good to have the updates come through. And we did have a work group meeting yesterday about the animal control services that Supervisor Beatty had mentioned there, and the issue will be coming up before the Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Diamond.
No committee reports, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Supervisor McDevitt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As Doug mentioned, we have scheduled a meeting on May 31st at 9 o'clock for members of the revolving loan fund committee as well as Mr. Young. So I think that Mr. Chairman and our chairman, as well as Ryan, as well as our counsel, as well as Amanda, they're on top of this. Okay, so all of these members will be sent letters inviting them. They will be called to determine whether they will attend or not attend. So we will make every effort, every organized effort to ensure that they attend and be in a position to just answer some questions. So so we'll just have to see what happens, Doug, and hopefully we'll get some strong attendance. So that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
I have no committee report. I would like to comment on the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board matter. I know that you said the 5 counties are working. Some of them need to figure out who's getting appointed to the board, and then there will be a meeting called. I think that Supervisor Beatty's suggestion of having Mr. Young resign is quite appropriate here. At the last meeting that we had him here, Supervisor Wild asked him why he should be allowed to remain on as executive director, and he did not respond. He didn't even respond. So I think he's been blocking our information and even maybe hiding some information from us, and I find it completely unacceptable, and I think that 5-county group should meet as soon as possible and have Mr. Young resign. And if he won't do it, we need to take other action to make sure that we have someone else in there who is competent and open and transparent for all of the counties. Thank you.
And also, Supervisor Bramer, thank you for representing the county on Law Day. Maybe you could give us a brief report on that. It looked like it was well attended.
It was well attended. This year's theme for Law Day from the American Bar Association was separation of powers. And the Warren County Bar Association does a nice breakfast every year. And the Warren County Proclamation was presented, and it was a really good turnout. It was about 70 people. There was also a presentation to the high school mock trial team who won this year's competition. It was actually the School of Salem. So not a Warren County school, but it was very nice.
Thank you. And thank you.
Represent county. Thank you.
And thank you for doing that. Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing to report.
Supervisor Driscoll.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health, Human, and Social Services met on April the 24th. We had reports from Employment and Training Administration, Social Services, Office of the Aging and Public Health. It was the first meeting for Commissioner of Social Services, Chris Hanchett, and the first meeting for Public Health Director, Janelle Jones. They both did a very good job. They both seem to be settling into their new positions, and, doing a fine job with it. And as a result of those meetings, we have resolutions 209 through 215. 209 just deals with an agreement for interpretive services for the deaf. 210 is approving the Workforce Investment Board budget for the program year 2018-2019. 2011 is approving amendment agreements with various managed long-term care companies to allow the incorporation of the standard clause amendment for Office for the Aging. 212 is an amendment of resolution number 76 of 2018, which amended resolution number 118 of 2016, authorizing agreements with various organizations under the Community Services for the Elderly Program for the Office of the Aging. 213 is authorizing an agreement for speech therapists. 214 is amending the agreement with Delta Health Technologies to allow for migration of patient data from Encore to Crescendo to correct the amount of the technology update. And then the last one is 215, authorizing Patricia Belden, supervising public health nurse, to act in the absence of the Director of Public Health Patient Services in the event of an emergency. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. April 18th, I want to start out by thanking the supervisors that attended the Cornell Cooperative Extension Board meeting. It's nice to have a large group there. Some of the highlights from them is the county DPW has completed the site preparation for the new greenhouse, so they're very appreciative for that work. Also, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Warren received the Dorothea Dix Community Service Award from the Warren Washington Association for Mental Health. They've also been nominated for the Nonprofit Business of the Year by the Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce. So it's a great organization, and I'm glad to be connected with them. So on April 23rd, we had one of two Public Works meetings this month. In that meeting, we had Jim Liebram come and do a talk about the Warren County MS4 annual report, and he informed us of that. And also, we talked about the Warren County Adopt a Highway Roads, the household tire recycling day that was scheduled for May 5th. I'm sure that was successful. I don't have the numbers on that yet. And then from Superintendent Hajos, we also heard about funding projects that he had applied for bridges through Bridge New York. And out of that meeting, we had two resolutions. Number 217, which is amending resolution number 181 of 2018, which amended the fee schedule for Up-Yonda Environmental Education Center to correct the amounts listed in the fee schedule. Number 218 was authorizing agreement with Nixon Peabody LLC to provide legal counsel with regard to litigation with the Saratoga North Creek Railway, which I urge your support for. Then the next meeting was May 1st, which we had the supervisor from the town of Corinth and also his attorney, and we discussed the ongoing issue with Saratoga North Creek, Iowa Pacific, our contract with them, and much of that was taken up in executive session, and I'm hoping to have a report soon before our next DPW meeting, once our contract with the attorney is ratified, hopefully today. So then also on April 23rd, I'm going to back up, I missed the meeting report, but I am also chair of the Warren Washington County Industrial Development Agency, and I've been kind of remiss in not doing a report. I don't know why I didn't report, but I'm busy assuming my role and trying to move forward with that. So we had some new business. We had Mr. Ken Ray from Ray Terminals, who we did a project with him last year in the town of Hampton in Washington County. Has gone very well. The project is performing well. And they asked if we would support them, assist them with the New York State Department of Transportation grant that was available. from the Passenger and Freight Rail Assistance Program. So we worked with them and we got the application in, and everything's good. So we're waiting to hear on that on another project. They're going to be able to become even more efficient and supply even more propane at a much better in a much better way. On April 25th, I attended the Adirondack Park Local Government Review Board meeting in Minerva. Also, Supervisor Garrity was there. We heard updates on what had happened at the Adirondack Park Agency meeting in the previous month, and we talked about some of the issues in the Adirondacks and the high peaks with overuse and parking issues on Route 73 up in Keene. We also heard a report on the high peaks wilderness area. Actually, that was this month. I'm ahead. The month before, we were alerted to the UMP being public this last meeting that I attended last week. And so the High Peaks Wilderness Area UMP is out for public comment. You can, and also the Vanderwalker Mountain Wild Forest UMP is available for public comment. We're also going to have a couple of public meetings on May 23rd, one in Albany, one in Newcomb, and the deadline is June 27th for comments. And then Mr. Sokol, or Supervisor Sokol's not here, so I think I'll just report quickly on the resolutions that are before you on finance. Resolution 223 is authorizing the county treasurer to transfer funds from the computer reserve fund to departmental budgets for the purchase of computers and related equipment and software, amending the 2018 Warren County budget. 224 is authorizing the appropriation of funds from debt service reserve for debt to debt service interest indebtedness to cover the interest payment for the court expansion NSTEM bond. 225 is authorizing the county treasurer to charge off the uncollected receivables for Westmount Health Facility. And finally, 226 is authorizing acceptance of a settlement between Centers Healthcare and the County of Warren regarding the universal settlement and authorizing the chairman of the Warren County Board of Supervisors to execute all necessary documents relating to the same. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Simpson. Report of the county administrator.
Good evening. It's typically my privilege at the beginning of this report to thank county employees, longtime county employees that have achieved milestones, 20 years, 25 years, and so on. We actually don't have any for the month of May, so I will take this opportunity to thank the department heads and the county employees who are here for your hard work and your dedication, as proven by the fact that you are here during the late meeting. So thank you. Secondly, in terms of meetings, the chairman did go through a couple that I had in common, one of which was the conference call with the 5 counties, Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board on Friday, April 27th. I reported back to you all on the contents of that call. Prior to that, on April 24th, I and the county attorney and Supervisor Beatty, Supervisor Bramer, went over to the Washington County Agriculture, Planning, Tourism, and Community Development Committee. Again, the subject of conversation at that meeting was the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board. On Thursday, April 26th, I attended the first quarter corporate compliance meeting. That's our committee here to ensure that we handle our Medicaid responsibilities correctly. On Friday, May 4th, I met with the leadership of SUNY Adirondack, specifically Dr. Chris Duffy, the president, Anne Marie Soma, the vice president for administrative services. We met for quite some time in my office discussing the finances of the college. I look forward to meeting on June 1st where Warren County, Washington County will be invited in to discuss the next year budget request for the community college. Thursday, May 10th, Jim Liebram and I met for the purpose of getting acquainted with his agency and some of the projects they're working on. A lot of meetings in between with department heads and county staff, and I did want to mention, as Supervisor Garrity alluded to, we've had, I believe, 26 department head evaluations so far, and one more to go. And those began on May 1st, so May has been a busy month getting through all of those, as well as all the other topics that we have going right now. My last item tonight, I did want to make everyone on the board aware of the details to an amendment that will come from the floor tonight to Resolution 226. The text of that amendment should be on your desks for reference. The reason we have to do this amendment is due essentially to an oversight at the Finance Committee meeting on May 3rd. Now, as this board is aware, the Finance Committee voted to advance a resolution accepting a settlement agreement that was negotiated with Centers Healthcare concerning distribution of New York State Universal Settlement funding. However, that resolution, as discussed and approved by the Finance Committee, did not explicitly deal with the associated adjustment of a receivable, which, as a technical matter, should be done in conjunction with approving the settlement. Therefore, we're proposing that this be done tonight by way of an amendment from the floor. Now, just to provide some context for any supervisors that are not familiar with the universal settlement, several years ago, New York State agreed to the universal settlement that provides additional funding to nursing homes that had essentially been underpaid by Medicaid. There were a number of lawsuits brought by skilled nursing providers, and this was the state's way of rolling those issues up and making good on what they had underpaid all of these nursing homes. The amount that was due to the Westmount facility was approximately $327,000. And both the county and Westmount's current owner, Centers Healthcare, made claims to this funding. Now, the state DOH suggested a certain distribution of this funding between the county and Centers, and the county proceeded to negotiate a slightly more favorable share, with Centers retaining $120,000 at the end of the day and the county retaining the rest. So the $120,000 that Centers would keep under this negotiated agreement was included in a receivable, again, approximately $327,000 that was booked several years ago for the purpose of paying legacy costs associated with Westmount. Therefore, that receivable needs to be revised to remove the $120,000 that's included in this negotiated settlement, and the board's approval is needed to make that revision. As I mentioned, the text of that amendment should be on your desks. The amendment consists of the second whereas paragraph, the third whereas paragraph, and the clause that's in the resolve paragraph beginning in the second line, which reads, quote, and authorizes the county treasurer to write off the amount of $120,000 of the universal settlement receivable amount. The county treasurer is here tonight in the event that you have any questions about this amendment. And at the appropriate time, I think the chairman will call for an amendment to be made by the floor, again, with the text that's in front of you.
Yeah, I think we could, let's amend it, and then we can bring it to the floor for discussion on the resolutions. Mr.
Chairman, I'll offer amendment to Resolution 226.
As advanced, okay. Mr. Simpson on the second. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Report of the county attorney.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
No report. Reading of communications.
Report of criminal and family workloads for April 2018 from the Warren County Probation Department. Monthly report for April 2018 from the Warren County Department of Weights and Measures. Independent Auditor's Report for the year ended December 31, 2017 from the Warren and Washington Counties Industrial Development Agency. Financial reports dated November 30th, 2017, January 31, 2018, and February 28, 2018 from the Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Court. Audit financial statements, supplemental, and other information for years ended December 31, 2017 and 16 from the Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Court. Minutes from the March 19th meetings of the Warren and Washington County Civic Development Corporation and Industrial Development Agency. A copy of a letter from the New York State Comptroller to the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board advising their organization has been selected for a state audit. Copy of an email from Aaron Frankenfeld, Director of the Adirondack Glens Falls Transportation Council, advising of the Transportation Council's host agency arrangement with the Planning Board and stating concern with regard to how dissolving the Planning Board would affect them. A copy of a letter from Walter Young, Executive Director, Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board, acknowledging receipt of request for information from Roger Wicks, Washington County Attorney. Letter from the New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Office informing that the Queensberry Hotel is to be considered for nomination to the National and State Registers of Historic Places at their June 7, 2018 meeting. And March payment in the amount of $4,455 from the Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Court.
Thank you. Reading of resolutions.
Proposed resolution numbers 201 through 226 were mailed to you. Proposed resolution number 227 was developed after mailing. Copies were emailed to the board yesterday and posted to the county website. Printed copies are in your folders. A motion is needed to bring proposed resolution number 227 to the floor.
I have a motion to bring this to the floor. Mr. Merlino on the motion. Is there a second? Ms. Bramer on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the board regarding any resolutions before us this evening? There being no one, I'll close it to the public. And before we get into discussion of resolutions, let me just ask for roll call. Is there any request for roll call on any resolutions? There being none, Ms. Bramer.
Sorry.
Supervisor
I jumped
Bramer.
the gun with the raising my hand for the public. Could we have the treasurer give comments on the 226 amendment?
Absolutely.
Please?
Mike?
Good evening, everybody. I'll give you the history, and that maybe will explain what's going on. Back when Warren County still owned Westmount, they received notice of the universal settlement. Okay, and Mike McCarthy, who was the auditor at the time, booked that amount, which was the $320,000, booked that into as a receivable for Westmount. When Westmount was sold, that receivable came over to Warren County, along with all the other receivables. And this board took those receivables and put them into a special reserve account to pay legacy costs that we're going to be absorbing over the next 20 years probably. So that's basically where it came from. Now, because that settlement was for not only for just the current years that they were talking about, but they were projecting it into the future. That's why Centers had a claim, legitimate claim, to part of that money, because we sold it to them, and for part of the period of time under that universal settlement, Centers owned the nursing home. Does that clear it up? Do you have any questions?
Was that the third at the time?
I'm not sure exactly how long it was.
I think it's for 2 of the
2 years. I think it's for 2 years.
2 of the years.
Yeah.
And how long, when did the universal go in again?
We signed it December 5th, 2016?
15.
December 5th, 2015, we signed it.
Right, the settlement went through 2017, and it's those 2 years, the Centers, which was a party to the, with the state of New York, that's what they laid claim to.
What the state did is they said the rates needed to be adjusted, and everybody got more money out of it. And they started at a certain point, and they projected it out into the future. And 2 years of that future, Centers owned Westmount. Well, it's not called Westmount now, but they bought the nursing home, so for 2 years. Now, as far as the amount of the settlement and so forth, that's something that you all have to deal with. That's not part of my bailiwick.
Any other questions for the treasurer? Supervisor Bramer?
Not for the treasurer. Thank you. That helps me understand why we counted that 327 as a receivable to us. Something that it's just coming to my brain is that when we sold the nursing home, this was just before my time on the board, didn't we come to an agreement with Centers that all the receivables from the universal settlement would be ours to retain?
And I think the language on that was through the time that we sold it, but maybe our county attorney could comment on that.
I don't know. I would doubt it, considering.
I can tell you what I know about it. When the state came up with this universal settlement, we didn't know that they were including future years in the settlement cost. So the reason why Centers put a claim not just on the universal settlement for Warren County, but for all the nursing homes they purchased. And then the state came back to us and said, that's right. Part of this claim is for future years adjustments to the Medicaid rate. So they would not release the money. The state of New York would not release the money to us until we came set on this. So we hired an attorney, and this is what he's worked out. This is the only settlement. We did pretty well in our settlement, I believe, compared to some of the other counties that try to settle. But this was, when the settlement was done, we thought it was for past years, but it wasn't. The way the state crafted the settlement, it was for past years, but also years going forward. So that's why they laid claim to some of this money. That's what I know.
But the state also said that we could divvy it up how we wanted to. So if we had a separate side agreement saying
I think so.
that we kept
so.
everything, then
I don't believe that's
The state said that they wouldn't release the money unless both parties signed off, which to me was typical state BS. So the state wouldn't release the money until Centers signed off. So that's a very tough negotiating position. And I'm never keen on Centers. I think they've done a horrible job, and it's no secret what I feel about them. But I feel we were over the barrel on this because the state put us in such a terrible position. And I believe we did a nice job of negotiating, at the end of the day, better than almost all the other counties. So
I'm just suggesting maybe we could have done better if we had pushed for that prior agreement to be
state said they wouldn't give us
held
the money.
to.
The state overrode, their statute overrode us.
And to add, these nursing homes were involved in this settlement, not just state officials. They went to nursing home people and got them involved in this universal settlement. So I agree with Doug that we got the best deal we could for what was left of that. It's very complicated. I think if you look behind the scenes, you'll see how complicated it was. And this all came out after the fact.
Right. Well, I remember looking through the agreement that we had with Centers at the time of the sale, and it was very complicated. I just have one more question, please.
Absolutely.
The revision, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up when we voted on the proposal, has a different name. Just want to be sure that we are making our agreement with the right thing, because the other one says Centers Healthcare, and the new one says Warren's Operations Center, Warren Operations Associate.
My apologies for not pointing that out. That is obviously true. There is a name change, and that's the Operators LLC. That's the operator's name. Warren Operations Associates LLC. It's essentially a DBA.
Thank you. I didn't catch that. That was a good catch. Anyone else? Any other questions on any other resolutions? Okay. We will vote on resolutions.
Resolution 201, making supplemental appropriations. Ms. Hogan? Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 202, amending Warren County budget for 2018. Ms. Hogan?
Yeah.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Excuse me. Resolution 220, amending table of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2018. Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 223, authorizing county treasurer to transfer funds from the computer reserve fund. Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud? Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 224, authorizing appropriation of funds from debt service. Mrs. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Collective on the rest.
The collective on the rest, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Privilege of the floor. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the board at this time? Announcements. Supervisor Simpson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to let everybody know that the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages annual member meeting will be on June 3rd and 4th at the High Peaks Resort. And, the town supervisors, hopefully we'll see you there. I also have your packet with your, our agenda and your certificates in my vehicle. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring it up tonight to give it to everybody. So I will leave them in the break room, coffee room. Other than that, that's it.
Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah. The one thing, I did send an email over to Communication Center because if you listen to Monitor the night the storms were going on, they were just constantly going out calls, and to the volunteer fire departments who handle most of those calls. Some, I think Luzerne had 12, 15. I know we had 10 or 12 up in Warrensburg that night. All the fire companies in the county were busy, and all the calls went through one county center, and that's this communication center here. So they did an excellent job of dispatching everybody, and I did send an email to the sheriff so he could tell the dispatchers, great job they did also. So, and the volunteer fire companies were out there getting paid zero. So, good job by everybody that night of the storm.
Any other announcements? Mr. Merlino. Supervisor
Just a little dig, not a dig, a thing for the town of Lake Luzerne, for a little town. There's an article in a Southwest Airlines magazine about our folk school in the town of Lake Luzerne. So anybody that flies Southwest and reads that little magazine on the back of the seat might read about Lake Luzerne and Warren County.
All right.
Very good, very good. Supervisor Just.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to introduce and welcome Jim Clark from the Glens Falls Common Council. Jim succeeded me on the Common Council. Had an opportunity to work with Mayor Diamond for 8 years, as did I, and thank him for coming this evening. I also wanted to congratulate and thank the planners of the Spring Zing up at the Warren County Fish Hatchery this past Saturday. Wonderful activity. The fish were biting. Everyone had a good time. I spoke to Kevin. I understand when I left at around 1 o'clock, there was close to 200 people who had come up, and it's an entity that doesn't get a whole lot of fanfare, but certainly they do a great job up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Frazier, Supervisor Bramer on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pennell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pennell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pennell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pennell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.